what, Jerry? It was set last year. And the record previous to that was set in 2012, and the record previous to that was set in 2011. My point being is the game is skewed offensively, and if Andrew Luck has a typical Andrew Luck game, you could throw the 85 Bears at him, and he's still going to throw for 350 yards. And that was my main concern, is that you were going to throw Johnny Manziel into a game against a quarterback that, if he gets hot, there's only a few people on this planet that could match him throw for throw. And I just thought that was a terribly unfair position to put Johnny Manziel in, on top of the fact that I think Brian Hoyer deserved, the consideration that he had that team at 10-5, as we always talk about. So it's a combination of things. And I think it hurt Hoyer for the fact that the Browns defense played so well. And it does come across as if you just got competent play at the quarterback position, you win that football game. But assuming you're going to get competent play out of a guy who's never started an NFL game, it's a big assumption.
It's a huge assumption, absolutely, here. And I saw Bruce in the chat room. I think that, I do think that there's a lack of necessarily confidence during the season. I mean, again, but for those of you, and I got guys coming at me from every side of the argument here. If Manzel lights it up, there's going to be people that say that the Browns screwed the pooch from the beginning. If Manzel lays an egg, there's going to be the side that say, well, I told you so. All of that, you're going to have to deal with it. But as far as the people talking about Brian Hoyer, I mean, you and I have said all season long he got more than almost any other team in this situation would have given him, especially the Browns in the past. But he did get opportunities that most teams don't give you when you're coming back, not only coming back from injury with no real track record of success behind you, with all of the things that he had against him, and then drafting a quarterback that's high profile in the first round. The odds that he even was able to get out of training camp, credit to him, and the way he started the season again. And I tell people, I don't necessarily look. Probably Brian Hoyer is going to settle into about where he's at right now. But who knows? He could learn from this experience here with the Browns and go to Houston or go to wherever or stay here. It's not in the world of unseen conclusions that he doesn't just decide I can't start somewhere else. I'm going to stay here in Cleveland as the backup, So, but regardless, I do believe that he can learn from this. Either way, though, taking Manzel out of the equation, the Browns, I believe, had to make a decision this week, because I think we all thought whatever you were going to get out of Brian Hoyer at this point in the season, and I just mean as a leader, as a motivator, whatever, fired up, whatever word you want to use, you were going to see it against the Colts. And even if guys dropped passes, and they did, and Josh Gordon's running lazy routes and guys are dogging it, I get that. But you would have overcame that a little bit. You would have hit the wide open Taylor Gabriel. You know what I mean? You would have done those couple of things, and he doesn't have the confidence. His body language, you could just see it. This is not a confident Brian Hoyer, and it doesn't matter if your name's Hoyer, Manzel, Montana, Luck. It doesn't matter. If you're not confident at quarterback, you're dead in the water.
Yeah, that's true. And, he got his opportunity. If you're Brian Hoyer, you can argue. If you were benched before last week's game, you could have made a strong argument that was completely unfair. You really can't make that argument this week, because he had every opportunity to win that football game. And there are other people, we talk about it all the time, quarterback gets too much credit when a team wins, too much blame when a team loses.
Yep.
As well as the Browns defense played as a whole. They still had an opportunity to win the game, and they weren't able to keep Indianapolis out of the end zone. And part of it is that you can't keep, no matter how poorly Andrew Luck is playing, you can't keep giving him the ball back time and time again. Eventually he's going to get you, and that's exactly what happened. And T.Y. Hilton, we all know, Joe Hayden does a tremendous job in the first half, not such a great job in the second half. these wins are about more than one person, and so are the losses. But any argument that it's unfair to go to Johnny Manziel this week is no longer valid. It just isn't after the way Hoyer performed last week and the way he's performed, over the past month or so, really. He just hasn't done the job, and part of it, as you mentioned, Josh Gordon specifically. You look at a guy who leads the NFL in receiving yards last year, missing 2 games, and how spectacularly gifted he is athletically, and you just see, wow, we're going to get him back, and everything's going to he's going to hit the ground running. To be out for that long, you just don't. These are human beings. You just don't hit the field and start playing at 100% of what you were the year prior, and that's going to take some time. And it's just a combination of things. But quarterback is what quarterback is, and Brian Hoyer understands that. And he's got to understand why the team is looking towards Johnny Manziel this week. And I think it is. I agree with you. There are some people, because of Johnny Manziel, his star stature, his Q rating, whatever you want to call it. I was just on in New Zealand because people want to talk about Johnny Manziel. Everybody wants to talk about him. I don't know. Some people have it. So whether it's Hollywood, we always, why is Tom Cruise a movie star? I don't know. He's got it. We're wrestling guys. Why is Steve Austin Steve Austin? Why is Hulk Hogan Hulk? They have it. They have it. As far as the star stature, as far as the personality, people want to follow Johnny Manziel. They're excited by him. They want to see him succeed. They want to see him do well. Now it's up to him. He's going to get every opportunity. But I just, you should, not that they will, I agree with you, they won't. You should temper your expectations. Look at some of the other rookie quarterbacks playing this year. Blake Bortles has a better skill set than Johnny Manziel. And look at what he's been able to do. Derek Carr has some nice things. From day one, I told you Teddy Bridgewater is the most NFL-ready quarterback of this group, and he's proven to be.
That was who I wanted for the Browns, trust me.
Yeah,
I was all
and he's
about
proven
Teddy.
to be. And he is worlds ahead of most rookies as far as reading defenses and as far as his ability to be calm in the pocket and just a natural, innate, ability to run a team. He is worlds above most rookies, and you've seen him. He's played very well at times, struggled at other times. It's going to happen with rookie quarterbacks, no matter who they are. I would urge people to not expect the second coming of Dan Marino at his prime, but he's got some ability, and hopefully he can give the Browns some juice this week.
Absolutely. And for those of you that say, well, we just have no chance with a rookie, realize that my argument, and I was just saying, the best way to put this is if the Browns' backup quarterback was Jason Campbell, the conversation this week in Cleveland should have still been, should Jason Campbell get the start at quarterback, because you needed to get something happening at the position. So that's what I mean when I tell people to separate the name. And, Manz, I want to ask you about Gordon here in a minute, but something interesting that I saw about Manzel, I don't know if you saw this little statistic or not, but in the past 20 years, Manzel is only the 5th rookie quarterback drafted in the first round to start in week 15 or later of a season. The other 4 were Tebow, Jamarcus Russell, Rex Grossman, and Steve McNair. Tebow and Russell lost their first game as a starter. Grossman and McNair won theirs, although, obviously every team is different at that point in time. But it is also a rarity nowadays, as we talked about Brian Hoyer sustaining as long as he did, for a quarterback of this pedigree being drafted early to start this late into a season.
Yeah, and that harkens back. It's rare because, and you know, some of those names, Marcus Russell immediately comes to mind. You know, similar situation. He just showed up and he wasn't ready to play. Because if we've talked about it again and again, if you draft a quarterback in the first round, you plan on playing him sooner rather than later. There are some notable exceptions. First and foremost would be Aaron Rodgers, but you know, Aaron Rodgers was behind a Hall of Fame quarterback in his own right, Brett Favre, and you know, that's rare to say the least. And usually you make your decision early in the year or far earlier. So if you have a rookie quarterback, you know, and you plan on playing him like the Raiders did with Derek Carr, you play him. And if you don't, you sit him. That was the plan in Jacksonville, but Chad Henne struggled, and they went to Bortles, and then Matt Castle in Minnesota got injured, and they had to go to Bridgewater. So usually you make this decision quicker because, A, you're not in the playoff hunt, or B, injury. And this is a situation where Cleveland was in the playoff hunt. They were winning football games, and there hadn't been an injury. So it's rare. And it's rare when you're in the playoff hunt, and technically they still are, and you're going to pull the plug on the veteran and go to a rookie. It's just extremely, extremely rare. But on the other hand, I'm not going to kill Cleveland for it. I killed them for it last week when I thought they were going to do it. I'm not going to kill them this week because I think now, although we can say they're in the playoff hunt, they're not really in the playoff hunt. So I think it's a little bit different than this week than last week.
I had somebody that I talked to that I trust that's close to people basically sum it up to me like this. Mike Pettine had always said that when he was the lone voice in the room, then he would have to obviously acknowledge certain things, and it reached that point. You could see it. I mentioned this. I don't know if you got the chance to see or even listen to Mike Pettine's press conference on Monday when everything was still fresh. The look on his face, I mean, he was beet red on his face, which is easy to tell with us bald guys. You can always see that. And he was very, very flushed. His eyes were I don't want to say teary-eyed, but he definitely had a weary, worn-down look. And he also had the look of a guy who was being put in a position that he did not in any way want to be in, because I think we all know that he was 100% hoping that, you know, Brian Hoyer would be able to live up to the opportunity. But you could just see it all over his face when he had that press conference that he just reached a point where even if he was still arguing for Brian Hoyer, he was the only one left. And at that point, you can't fight everybody, even if you're the head coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there's a little difference. You can, and we talked a little bit about that last week. You can if you're Bill Belichick. You can if you're Mike Pettine. It's just as simple as that. And we talked a little bit about Ray Farmer last week. I mean, this started with Ray Farmer. And anytime, and I'm not criticizing him, any general manager in this league wants their first-round picks to succeed. That's just natural, because if they don't, that's a black mark on your resume.
What are you doing here? Exactly.
Yeah. So you're obviously you're very, very invested in seeing your first round picks succeed, or even your high draft picks as a whole. Look at the Jets and John Idzik, and Geno Smith was a second round pick, and he forced basically Rex Ryan to play him. Yeah. It happens. I think people don't understand that. There are certain coaches with the cachet to stop it and do whatever they want. Let's be honest. As good as he's done this year as a rookie head coach, Mike Pettine's not one of those guys.
Oh, no. When you're the fifth option, you don't have the loudest voice in the room. I don't care.
No.
Like, you know what I mean?
I mean, hindsight says it was a pretty good move, but before the season, if you talk to anybody, Mike Pettine was lucky to have a head coaching job in this league.
Exactly. That was what everybody said. Everybody.
Yeah. That's just the reality of the situation. Remember, Cleveland was very, very, very close to trading for Jim Harbaugh to be the head coach of that team. And I got news for you. There's another guy. If he was the head coach of that team, and he wanted Brian Hoyer to remain the starting quarterback. Brian